Hey, Hexen. How you doing? Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Do I sound clear? Good. Very good, very good. Okay. Yeah, and this image looks really good. This is much better than the other cameras I was using. So, so hopefully this is successful. I'm hoping. Because I'm quite tired of buying cameras. Hmm. What you doing? I am showing the Thomson Leng tarot. And where's the box? Oh, this is very bright. Let me turn this light down a little bit. Okay, maybe that's better. Maybe. So that's the box. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a little bit different. I got it from tarotcollectibles.com. It is pretty whimsical. Yeah, I got this at tarotcollectibles.com, and it's a reproduction. Um, this this deck, the Thomson Leng tarot, was actually originally available. It was advertised in women's magazines in the 1930s, and that was the only way you can get it. And it's like incredibly rare. Like to find original copies of this is like a ridiculous amount of money. So it's very rare. But now that there's a reproduction, it's easier to get, and it's pretty fun. I'm hoping more people show up. I kind of don't want to start showing cards until people show up, but we'll see. Yeah, I'll show you these. So it comes with these extra like bonus cards, and it has, I don't know if you would call it a title card, but it's like an extra little thing here. Wow, this lighting is really bad. I don't think you can read that at all. But it says, through all the ages, seers have sought the ways of fortune, fate, and strife. They wrote their knowledge on the cards as signposts for the road of life. There's a little poem on there. It's kind of cool. And these are what the backs look like. It's got some blue swirly kind of design. Like, it's pretty, but it's nothing too fancy. And then it also comes with the well, originally in like the original deck, it came with a little booklet, but the guy who did the reproduction of this scanned them and he made them into little cards. So you get like these spreads. Yeah, it looks like clouds. And then called the Mystic Sevens. And I think all of these spreads are original to this deck. Like, I don't think they were found anywhere else. Eastern Cross Method. And then this one says the Royal Road of Life. And then on the back it says the Lover's Guide. And I'm not going to read all of these, but oh, there's another one. Oh, yeah, it's just a thank you card. Thank you for buying our deck. So yeah, so this deck came out in the 1930s in women's magazines, and it's really unique. A lot of the art is Rider-Waite Smith based, but a lot of it isn't. And there's some really unique stuff in here. I'll start showing you some cards here. So here is the Magician. And then this one, instead of the High Priestess, they call it the Great Priestess. I don't know why it's the Great Priestess, but it's the same. Very similar to the RWS. Yeah, the colors are great. And then here is the Empress. And this Empress is interesting because she's like out in the field, like the cornfield, like the Rider-Waite Smith Empress. But then she's got the wings, like the Marseille Empress and the shield. So it's sort of a combination of both, which is very interesting. Interesting design choice. And here's the Emperor, and it's a very Marseille Emperor, facing the side and with the same shield as the Empress. And this is interesting, instead of the Hierophant, they call it the Great Priest. And then here's the Lovers. And this is a very Marseille style of lovers with the three people. And then the Chariot. I don't know if you can see this. I'm having such trouble with this lighting here, but let me try this. Turn this off. Maybe it helps a little bit. I don't know. Oh, there's the Chariot. Okay. So you see the Sphinxes, and the Sphinxes both have breasts. See, they have breasts. And then the guy in the chariot has this weird chest plate with nipples on it. So there's like lots of nipples on this card, which is kind of funny. It's a very nipply chariot. And then there's strength. Very, very, very traditional strength. Okay, and then here's the hermit, and he's a Marseille style hermit, Tarot de Marseille style hermit, because the Rider-Waite Smith hermit has the hood up, he's hooded, and the Marseille hermit has the hood down, which is an interesting distinction. But he's also very interesting too because he doesn't look very old. He's sort of a young-looking hermit. He's got blonde hair instead of white hair, and I don't know how well you can see the details of this. It's probably too close, but this guy looks like a comic book character, and I find that interesting. And you'll see more of it in this deck. Oh yeah, the colors are very vibrant. Yeah, I love the colors. And you'll see a lot of it in this deck, but there's a lot of the art style reminds me a lot of like comic books from the 1930s and 40s, like the golden age of comic books, like Superman and Wonder Woman. It's very much in that style of art, very much of that time period. And then here is the Wheel of Fortune. And Justice. The Hanged Man. Death, which is interesting because this death is very much the Rider-Waite Smith style of death, but he's facing the other way, which is very interesting. Yeah, he's going to the left instead of going to the right, but all the same elements are there. The flag is different though, because the flag is just a plain black flag. It doesn't have that rose or flower on there, which is interesting. Temperance. The Devil. Okay, so here's an example. This is the Devil. Very much the classic devil image. And what's interesting is that the people in it are not naked. There's no nudity in this deck at all. And it's funny, usually I'm very much opposed to censorship of any kind. Like, I despise it. But this is interesting because it's a product of the period in which it was made. So I can make an exception for that because it's sort of in a particular style in a particular time period. So not having the nudity actually makes sense. At least I think so. So it doesn't really bother me in this case. So yeah, all the figures are clothed. The Tower. The Star. As you can see, she's wearing clothes because usually she's naked. But yeah, I mean, you can see like her hairstyle and just that style of art is very much a product of that time period, that 1930s style, which is just, it's so cool. It's like a little time capsule. And the moon. Wow, it's hard to see the face in the moon. The lighting is really bad. Moon. The sun. And that's a Marseille, Tarot de Marseille style sun with the two kids instead of the creepy baby on a horse like the Rider-Waite-Smith. Judgment. And again, they're all wearing clothes. And this is interesting. Okay, so most people are used to seeing the Fool at the beginning of the deck. And in most modern decks, that is the case. But in a lot of older decks, especially like Marseille style decks, the Fool either is the last card or it comes before the World, which is, in this case, so instead of number 0, it's number 21. And he's interesting. So, here he is walking along and he's got his dog, but then he's like walking off the cliff and there's like this weird alligator or dinosaur or whatever the hell kind of creature that is. Some weird monster he's about to walk into. I don't think I've ever seen a Fool like that before with that creature on it. And then here's the World. All right, so now we're going to get into the Fool is really cool. It's a little different, but now we're going to get into something really different because now we're getting into the suits. And the suits are a really weird blend of different tarot traditions. Some of them are like, the Rider-Waite-Smith style, but a lot of them aren't. And one suit in particular, the Wands, is not at all. So we're going to get into a little tarot history now. So in 1909, there was a French guy named Eudes Picard who released a book, and I can't think of the title of it because it's in French. I think it's Manuel Synthétique et Pratique de Tarot or something like that. It's like the manual of something, practice in tarot, something like that. But anyway, so he released this book in 1909, and it featured a completely different style of pips than what we're used to. And this Picard system is very rare. Like, not many decks use it. There's only like maybe 6 that I know of that I've seen that use variations on the system. And what he does with his minor arcana is interesting because he also switches the elemental associations around. 2 of them are the same, and I think 2 of them are switched. But I'll get to that. But in this deck, the wands in particular are very interesting because they're all in that Picard system. And So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a comparison, because I do have another deck that uses the Picard system of minors, and it's very interesting. So, so in this deck, the Thomson Leng deck, the wands are called rods. So we're gonna get a lot of rods, honey. Hope you're ready for some rods. So here is the ace, and this this deck is the since I'm doing a comparison, El Gran Tarot Esoterico, and it's a Spanish deck, I think. So here is the ace of wands, and there's the hand and the fire, but the rest of it is a little bit different. Um, this one, Thomson Leng, has people on it, and in the other one there isn't. So this one, it's a little more pippish, but it's a different style, which you'll see. So there's the ace. And here's the two. So you see the crossed wands and the fire, and then there is the grapes on top, and then this one there's wheat, but there doesn't appear to be wheat in this one, I don't think. No, but yeah. And then it gets interesting from here, because then you get the pips are arranged in shapes, geometric shapes. So the 3 is a triangle. So they're arranged in the triangle, and then there's the caduceus in the center, and a dog's head above. And if you look in Picard's book, which you can probably, I think you can find online, like somebody transcribed it, there's meanings of like what all this symbolism means. But the shapes are the interesting part for me, because they're not arranged like a Marseille style deck where they're all like latticed and interlaced. They're arranged in geometric shapes, which is cool because I like sacred geometry and like star shapes and stuff, and I can pull a lot of meaning from shapes. And you can see in here there is they're arranged in a square. There's wheat in the middle, and then there's a lion below. Yeah, it's really different. It's really different. And then the 5, which is a pentagram on fire, basically. So here they get into the star shapes, and this is what I love. And then here you can see a difference in the interpretation. Okay. So here you see they both have the wheat and they both have the sun, but the interpretation is different. So I know in the Picard book, it's supposed to be 2 triangles, but how these 2 triangles are arranged in these cards are different. See, here it has one pointing up and one pointing down, which can be interpreted in one way, and this one, they're interlocked into a hexagram, so it's also a star shape. But there's so much symbolism you can pull from these shapes, I think. And then the 7 has a square, and in this one it has the symbols of the elements, which is missing in this one for some reason. And then there's a triangle with a sun inside in both of them. And the 8, which is one of my favorite ones, it's an 8. It's an octagram, and with fire and smoke coming up, and the shape of the octagram in both of them is a little different, as you can see, but it's still an 8-pointed star. But also, like in this one, you got the dudes crossing the desert on the camels. There's a little something extra on this one. And then the 9 with a square and with a lantern in the middle, a lamp, and then this one it's a pentagram, and then this one it's a pentagon. It's open, and here there's a fire, and in this one there's a fire too, but there's the 3 guys sitting around it. The same guys who were crossing the desert on the camel, it looks like. So it's the same Picard system, just a different interpretation, which is cool. And then this is completely different. Here you have the star shape, and in this one they're interlaced. They're like latticed, sort of like a Marseille style. But then it's also got this 8-pointed star around it, which I didn't notice before, but that's kind of cool too. Yeah, I had never heard of this system before either, until I discovered the Thomson Leng deck, and then, hey Pat. So what I'm showing is the Thomson Leng tarot, but I'm also talking about the Yud Picard system of minors. So I'm also doing a comparison, which I'm only going to do with this one suit, I think. So here's the page, and they both have the page kneeling down with his staff and a fire nearby. And then the knight on his horse, and they both have a helmet on the ground. And the queen, who is holding her torch. They're both holding a torch, and they're both standing on an arrow, pointing in the same direction. And then the king. And they're both standing on a lion with fire. This one is standing in front of a window, it looks like. So yeah, it's a little different. So what do I got here? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the Thomson line, the main deck that we're showing here. So we showed the wands, so you got an idea of the Yud Picard system of minors and the geometric shapes. And now we're going to see something a little different. Oh, and earlier I said that in the Picard system, he switches the elemental associations around. So the wands are still fire, but the swords, see that, swords. The swords are water, which is really weird, but there's something to it, I think. Swords being water. Ace of Swords. And then the Two of Swords. And this is interesting. She's sitting on this rock in the middle of the water, and she's doing the as above, so below, like the magician. One is pointing to the clouds, and the other is pointing into the water. So it's very different. And the three of swords. which is cool. It's got like this Three Musketeers kind of vibe to it. It's not like the Rider-Waite-Smith where there's a heart with swords impaled in it, like Heartbreak. This sort of has a different. Swords are associated with Aquarius. Maybe there's something to that because, yeah, I think there is some sort of astrological association or something like that that has to do with this. So yeah, so there's these three guys joined with their swords in the air, and they're standing on this rock in the middle of the ocean. So it's sort of like all for one and one for all. Even if we're stranded here, we're still together. We have each other. Oh, you were discussing it in chat. Oh, that's cool. And then here is the 4. And as you see, this 4 of Swords looks very much like the Wands in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Is it the 5 of Wands? I think, where they're all fighting each other. Is it? I think it's the 5. But in this one, it's the 4 of Swords, which is very interesting. And then here's the 5. And there's this guy standing, holding his one sword, and all the other swords are fallen. And he looks grieving or pensive. He has something heavy on his mind, it looks like. And 6, there's a lady walking across these stepping stones across the water. She has one bunch of swords back there and another bunch of swords in front of her. Very interesting. Okay, and here's the 7 of Swords. And it's very Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, he's being sneaky, he's stealing the swords. But what's cool about this is that in this one, it's taking place at night, where in the RWS, it takes place during the day. And I kind of like it taking place at night better. I think it makes sense. He's being really sneaky and deceptive, making off with his stolen swords while everyone is asleep. And the moon is very pretty too. That has some sort of relevance to this too, I think. By the light of the moon. Yeah, it's a cool deck. It's a cool deck. And I haven't done any reading with it yet. But I'm really studying that Picard system of minors because I really like it, and I want to learn more about it and find out more about it and find more decks with that system because I like the geometric shapes with the stars and the squares and the triangles because it just, to me, that visual just, I don't know, I identify with that for some reason. I really connect with that. And the 8 swords, which looks like the Rider-Waite-Smith. She's bound. She's bound in chains, and she's not blindfolded though. But there's that sense of being bound or captive or trapped. The 9. And this is really interesting. Instead of a person laying in bed in the Rider-Waite-Smith, the 9 of Swords was a person in bed. He's in a jail cell and he's got a ball and chain on his foot. A sort of imprisonment, punishment. Yeah, really cool. And then here's the 10. And there's no person with swords in their back on the ground, but there's this giant bat. I have no idea what the bat means, but it looks cool. It's very, very creepy and imposing, sort of ominous. And then now we're into the courts. Here's the page. Oh, I'm trying to get this in focus. So he's standing on this checkerboard or chessboard on a beach, I think. There's this checkerboard in the beach for some reason, holding his sword up, and he's looking out into the sea, I think, for someone, waiting for someone to arrive. In the night. See, and here we go. There's more water, swords and water. Oh, if you can see this, if that's in focus at all. I'm trying to get this. So there he is, the knight on his horse, crossing the water, trudging across the water. And the Queen of Swords. On her throne, with a pool of water behind her and a crescent moon above. And she looks like she's waving or something. She's sort of, I don't know. Or, stop, cease. And then the king, who is also on his throne with a moon, and I think there's a body of water in the background. So those are the swords. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting with the swapping of the elements. So swords were water, but cups are air. I don't understand why cups are air. I don't really get it. I mean, if the cups are air, then the cups are empty. If they're filled with air, I mean, I don't really know what that means. But here you see the ace, and then there's this farmland down there, and the cup, and there's a castle coming out of the cup, which is cool, and a butterfly. And there are butterflies throughout this entire suit, which I love. Like, I would like to see more butterflies in tarot. And if I ever design my own tarot deck one day, there will be butterflies on it. But butterflies signifying air. And then the two. So it has a similar style as the Rider-Waite-Smith, the two facing each other with their cup. But instead of the, the caduceus above them, there's a garland of roses, which is kind of pretty. And then the three, which is very RWS. And then there's the butterfly again. Cups of air means I need a refill. Yeah, seriously. If your cups are filled with air, then you need to fill them again. But I don't really know why cups are air. I'm gonna have to do more research about that. But I really am intrigued by this Picard system of minors and the shapes and the swapped elemental associations. Like, it's a completely different system of tarot than what most people are used to, and I find it very fascinating. And then the four, which is very RWS, guy sitting underneath a tree. The hand is offering him a cup. He seems to be doing something. He's not sitting there with his arms crossed. He's got something in his hand, like a tool or something. I can't tell what it is. He's not writing, but he's holding some sort of tool. So he's occupied with some sort of task. He's being offered this cup, but he's not acknowledging it, or he can't see it. It's very interesting. 5, which is also very RWS. But I love the red sky. Look at that red sky. It's really intense. Uh, 6, very Rider-Waite-Smith. 2 children. One is giving the other one a cup filled with roses or flowers of some kind. And the garden in the background was very pretty too. I like the hedges. And then 7, very classic 7. There's the illusions, the dreams, the hallucinations, the choices, visions. But even, like I said earlier, that this style of art is very much in the 1930s sort of golden age of comic books style. But even this, I can see it. I mean, even that guy's stance, like the way he's standing in the shadow and everything, just looks like a scene out of a comic book. Like I've seen this guy before. And then the 8, and there's this. It's very similar to the RWS, but it looks like it's switched around. The perspective's different, I think. So she's standing on this edge by the water, and there's the cups on the water, and then there's the butterfly again. And the 9, there's that guy with his cups. And he looks different than the RWS guy on the cups. He's got a beard. He's an older guy. He looks a little bit maybe friendlier, wiser than the other guy. He sort of reads a little different to me than the guy in the RWS card. Sometimes those little details make a difference. And then there's the 10, very classic. There's the couple with the rainbow with the cups in it, but there's no children. There's no children. They took out the children, which I'm fine with because I don't really like those children in that that card. I mean, I understand it, but I just like the happy couple more than the children. The 7 reminds me of the image of Batman slapping Robin. Robin's book. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this style of deck is very much in that 1930s comic book style. And I love it. It's just such a unique thing. There's nothing really like this out there. And then there's the page. He is with his 2 cups filled with flowers. He's sniffing a rose. He looks quite dainty and pleased. Very pleasant. And then the Knight. Hello. Welcome to the chat. I'm showing some cards today. This is the Thomson Leng Tarot. Knight of Cups. Queen of Cups. And I really find this interesting, too, is that the cups, even though the elemental association in this deck is air, there's a lot of water. So here's his queen sitting on the throne facing this body of water. So you could kind of read this as water, too. I mean, and even this one, King of Cups, he's standing or he's sitting on this platform, but he's surrounded by water, like all around. There's a ship in the background. And there's a butterfly on his cup, I think, right? Yeah, there sure is. Butterfly on his cup. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Okay, so now we are on to the pentacles or coins. In this deck, they're called pence. Ace of pence. Very typical configuration of the ace, but the coins all look a little different, which is cool. They're not pentacles. And then the two, that's the guy with his two coins there, and he's sort of juggling them, sort of like the RWS, but it doesn't have that infinity symbol around it. It almost looks very joyful, like he's not juggling because he's struggling. He's sort of playing with his pence. They look like donuts. They do kind of, yeah. They're not. I don't think they're hollow though. They're not hollow in the middle. They just have that. They have a yellow circle in the middle, and the red 8-pointed star around it. So that's the two. And then there's the three, which is the RWS with the guy building the structure there, the arch, and person holding plans or blueprints or something of that nature. So there's the three. And there's the four, which is very similar to the RWS with the guy with his coins, but he's not clinging onto them like, mine, you can't have any, can't take my coins. He sort of, one of them is balancing on his head, and the other one is in between his hands, and he's got his hands rested on top of them. So he's not gripping onto them for dear life like somebody's going to steal them from him. He's just sort of sitting there enjoying them, sort of showing them off a little bit maybe. The four. And then the five is very, very much the typical five, with the two poor, sick people in the snowstorm by the church window. Five. And then the six. Again, very RWS. Guy being very charitable, distributing his wealth. And seven. And there he is with his bush of coins, um, waiting to reap his harvest, waiting for them to grow. And then the 8, which is, him honing his craft. He's very diligent with his work. He's maybe an apprentice of some kind. But it's interesting because they're arranged on this arch. It's not like the pole or tree in the RWS, but it's the same type of image. But it's very pretty. I mean, even though it has the same type of image and the same type of symbolism, the artwork is just, it's so different. I love it. And remember, this came out, what was it, 25 years after the Rider-Waite-Smith. So this is post RWS. I mean, obviously, because of the images are inspired by it. But just the difference in that 25-year span in the style of art. And there she is, the 9, lady with the bird on her hand, strolling through her garden, enjoying her luxury. And I find it interesting that her garden, it's not a wall behind her, like we're used to saying. It's this. It is. No, it's not. It's not a wall. It's just a bush. She's walking by a bush. But still very, very similar. And here's the 10 with the family and the different generations and the dog too, right? Yep, there's the dogs there. And the arch with the coins on it. All what we're used to seeing. And then here is the page. Standing there holding his pence. Seems to be admiring it, inspecting it. And then the knight. I'm finding it interesting that I think all the knights, or at least most of them, have their helmets off. The helmets are always on the ground. I don't know why that is, but I find that very fascinating. It's sort of like taking off the armor or exposing yourself or making yourself vulnerable, removing the mask. Yeah, the knight. And the queen. And there are no grapes. I know in the RWS, in the Pentacle suit, there's a lot of the grapes. There's no grapes in this one. But still, there's, the flowers and foliage and things like that. So it's still very much the earth element. The queen. And the king, who looks very happy. It's a very happy looking king. And he's facing us, like directly facing us, like breaking the fourth wall, facing us, looking directly at us. And the King of Pence. So yeah, so there it is. That is the Thomson Leng Tarot. It's a replica of the Thomson Leng Tarot from the 1930s. A very rare deck with a very unique style. unique artwork, very unique system of minors. And it's actually a combination of different systems of minors, because you do have the Picard system in the wands, but then in most of the other ones, it's the RWS. So you get this different mixture of things, which is very, very interesting. So yeah, so that's the Thomson Leng. Oh, maybe I'll draw a card. Let's see what our card is. Let's give it a shuffle here. See what we get. Is anybody still in here? Is there anybody out there? Hey. All right. Let's see what our card is. Well, the other thing too that I should point out too, while I'm showing this, is that this is a very small deck. It's a mini deck. It's not a typical sized tarot deck. Let me see if I have one close by to compare. So there's that. Actually, I'll do. Oops, dropping cards now. Dropping cards, man. Small decks are nice for shuffling. They are, and they are very portable. Oh, let me pick up my cards. If I can. These are smaller. They're kind of, they might even be poker-sized cards. I don't have a poker deck to compare to, but I think that's all of them. So you can see, oops, you can see the size difference. So here is the CS Tarot, and then there's the Thomson Leng. It's quite a difference in size. Much, much smaller. All right, so I think I picked up all the cards. What is our card? The Moon. The Moon. Mysteries and secrets of the night and following your intuition. Yes, the moon. The moon can also be lighting your way through dark times. And yeah, it's a very magical card. I love the rays around the moon. It's very pretty. So yeah, there we go. So once more, it is the Thomson Leng Tarot Fortune cards. a reproduction of a 1930s deck, a very rare 1930s deck. Thomson Leng deck is a reprint based on the original Thomson Leng deck, and it's brought to you by www.tarotcollectibles.com. I don't know if you can read that, but there you go. And there's the box again with the Fool on one side, and then the Wheel of Fortune on the other. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a fun little deck. It's got some unique history and some unique imagery. And I mean, as soon as I saw it, I was just like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, there's some familiarity to it because a lot of it is similar to the RWS and things like that. But then it's got this completely different thing to it, you know, with the swapped elements and the card system with the geometric shapes and all these different things. So it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to play around with it and see how it reads, because I haven't really done anything yet, and this is the first time I shuffled it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to play around with it and see what I get out of it. So thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this. And until next time, have a good night, farewell, peace.